Hey everyone, welcome to the Conversations with Entrepreneurs series. My name is Joshua Fillmore. I'll be hosting the series on behalf of the USB Ed's Young Minds program. I'll be joined by a diverse range of some of the finest young entrepreneurs South Africa has to offer. We'll learn a bit about their journey, their thoughts on entrepreneurship and the role it plays in shaping the future of our country, and get a few first-hand tips for young entrepreneurs looking to start their own companies. Let's jump right in. Seb is without a doubt one of the most interesting guys I know. He's the founder and CEO of Ground Culture. Undoubtedly pushes the boundaries on all the stereotypical images of an entrepreneur. Ground Culture itself was founded in 2018 and recently won the Best Youth Business at the Western Cape Entrepreneurship Recognition Awards. They operate out of their online store as well as their two physical locations. And above all else, what I love the most is the fact that they do a brilliant job at balancing their people, planet, and profit. Seb, absolutely love what you do.
Very cool to be here and getting the opportunity to chat to everyone. Where my passion lies is how do we get the informal economy? How do we transgress that into the formal economy without changing the informal economy? And that's kind of where social entrepreneurship, in my mind, plays the biggest role. I think, social entrepreneurship is kind of misguided sometimes. I think people get too onto the side of kind of NGOs and handouts and kind of too obsessed with the social factor of social entrepreneurship. And I think when building a social business, what you really have to focus on is profit first, and then people, and then planet, because those are obviously important, but without profit, you shall not build a business.
I know that your guys' tagline is connect community, support local, and over the past year, you stated you've sold over 3,000 township-based products to the formal sector. I know you've had some super interesting experiences in our local townships as well. You've probably spent more time in Khayelitsha than any young man that's grown up in Cape Town ever has. Can you tell us a bit about what intrigued you or pulled you into the informal sector and how you acted on that?
I mean, I would agree with that statement that I probably having gone to a Model C school, it kind of taught the township is quite a dangerous place. We shouldn't go there just on a whim. So it is something that's developed slowly over time. And I think it developed from both my parents that were journalists. So I grew up with a very different view of the world, watching the news every single evening, and going to protests with my parents on the weekend, which was, well, not on the weekend, during school holidays, which was quite a crazy experience. But during school, I started learning about Steve Biko, who started the Black consciousness movement. And basically in the late 1960s, when there was no hope against apartheid, he inspired a movement that ended up building so much momentum that he effectively was the biggest change towards apartheid, because the whole ANC was in prison and there was no real hope. But this guy said, listen, we need to believe in ourselves. We need to believe in the future. And once we do that, we will be unstoppable. And that's kind of what triggered me to be like, cool, I got to get to the township, and I've got to figure out what is this next movement that we're creating, because we're so pessimistic about South Africa. At least in the future, everyone is like, oh, this country's going nowhere. But the only way we're going to move forward is if we do it inclusively. But if you go to standard places where entrepreneurs exist and there's houses everywhere, it's a very safe atmosphere. And you start to realize that African culture actually just wants to protect the people that are coming to view it. And I think that's my biggest learning of the informal economy is people are very proud of it. It's a booming, efficient system that people don't really understand, and that scares them. But once you go into the informal economy, people welcome you with open arms. They want to teach you about the way they do things, the success stories of the township. They want to just welcome you, because I think people from the informal economy come to a formal economy every single day.
The next thing I just want to touch on is the fact that you guys do an outstanding job of balancing, people, planet, and profit. I know you mentioned up front that you believe profit should always come first when building a social entrepreneurship company, and any company for that matter, and then have knock-on effects onto the other. I'd love to run them through quickly. So on the profit side of things, obviously you are a for-profit, but you also reinvest 10% of all Ground Culture's profits into the entrepreneurs you work with. What's your reasoning behind this, and how has that played out so far?
So it's an interesting question, and quite a difficult question to answer, because COVID's been a very difficult time, obviously, to launch a business, and most of the time it's been survival. So we haven't actually made a profit yet. So we haven't yet reinvested into the entrepreneurs we work with. But the idea behind that is, what you need to understand about the informal economy is it's not cash flux, it's flash. There's not a lot of cash behind it. Often if you work with township-based entrepreneurs, you need to pay them upfront, if not before they even produce the products, because they often cannot afford to go and buy a whole lot of products out front. There's no capital systems. I mean, there's no banks that are going to lend you things. There's no credit cards that are going to give you cash up front that you can repay interest free. There's nothing. There's stock files and there's loan sharks. That's about the only capital you'll find in the informal economy. So the idea behind reinvesting 10% of profits is actually more to build a fund that gives entrepreneurs access to kind of inventory capital that they can then repay, that they can then repay with stock.
You guys announced that you've replaced 12,300 plastic items over the past year. How difficult has it been to actually achieve this sustainability? And have you had to make certain sacrifices to your profit margin, or say no to certain products?
Yeah, I think a big part of what we've done, I mean, it sounds quite incredible. I must say 12,000. It still blows my mind, that stat. But it hasn't been that difficult, We have just tried to do things differently. When you start from a blank canvas and you imagine it, how do we create this thing biodegradably? It's a lot easier than having an existing system, and that's a problem with big businesses. They've got this huge infrastructure, they've got huge factories, they've got huge production lines that rely on using plastic and using, non-biodegradable products. But when you're reimagining from the start, it's a lot easier. You're not working with legacy systems.
Seb and the Ground Culture team were originally linking the formal and informal sectors by bringing in township-based products into cafes, bars, restaurants in Cape Town, and using these outlets as a means to resell the products and begin, obviously driving revenue towards the various township-based entrepreneurs as well. Going through COVID, obviously, this all came to a stop, and a lot of the cafes, restaurants, bars that you had partnered with closed down, some of them temporarily, some I imagine permanently. And then you kind of very quickly pivoted and brought Ground Culture online. Can you talk to us a little bit about thinking about that new business model, bringing Ground Culture online, and whether or not you think you'd actually still be operating today if you didn't act as quickly as you did?
I remember that week when lockdown was announced and everyone was like, what the hell is coming? I was in that same mindset. But what I thought at the time is, listen, all the coffee shops are closing and I've got a lot of stock and I need to figure out a way to just have I need to turn the stock into cash so I can survive these 3 weeks. And I made a little WhatsApp menu. I brought in a few more township suppliers and I sent it to all my friends. And I said, hey, here's some products. And I also put my prices up because I wasn't selling to coffee shops that had to resell. I was like, cool, I've got an opportunity to put my margins up. And I made 23 sales in the 3 days prior to lockdown, delivered them all myself. And I was like, whoa, this is quite cool. Like I made a hell of a lot more margin. People were really keen to support the township and really wanted to try these products. And I did this one in 3 days. Like I've got 3 weeks now. What should I do? 3 weeks to do nothing.
Opportunity
exactly. So that's what I say. I followed the feather that was floating and went, cool, let's give this a go. And I just spent the next 3 weeks like reimagining what grocery shopping could do.
One of the important things I'd like to ask you, we've got about 70 individuals tuned in here. And I'd just like to know what type of advice you'd give these young entrepreneurs who are seeking to start their own business. Are there any first steps you'd recommend them taking when going out and doing their own thing?
I think my step is just start something, like I think you can get so wrapped up in your idea and your concept and that it's the game changing thing, but I tell you, it's not. Like the first thing you think of is will definitely not be the thing you end up with. It just doesn't happen like that. Because I went from coffee shop reviews to distributing to coffee shops to launching an online store to opening a mini retailer to opening a retailer that turned into a coffee shop to opening a kiosk to having Uber Eats. And it's like I've come around and now I'm going back to the online store. Like it's totally different. So my advice would be just don't take your start idea too seriously. Don't sit there and write a 50-page business plan because it's a waste of time. Go out there, test your product, see if you can put a WhatsApp menu together. If you're doing a product, send it out to your friends and see if people bite. If people bite, then run with it. But if no one's biting, think of something else. And keep doing that at the start because you're probably going to be wrong. I mean, any big business will tell you anything that's at the place it was now didn't start like that. And you hear all the stories, like about businesses that started as something else and then adapted to that point. And I think I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs and people are like, oh, you got to sign my NDA if you want to hear my idea, but ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the execution that's really going to get you to the next point.
Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Seb. Really appreciate it. You're an absolute legend. Wishing yourself and the Ground Culture team all the best. Can't wait to pop into your guys' store again sometime soon.
Yeah.
For everybody else that's tuned in, definitely check out the store in OBS as well as the kiosk which they have in Cape Town CBD. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share before closing off the interview, Seb.
Nothing too much. Just go out there and change it. The world's waiting for young people to make a difference. It's literally the pressure's on our shoulders. So let's do it. Have fun with it as well. Don't take life too seriously because it's a game, and you just got to win the game.
Thanks for watching this episode of Conversations with Entrepreneurs. For more info on the featured entrepreneur and their business, check out the links attached below. The series is proudly brought to you by USB Ed's Young Minds program, which assists students in defining their life goals and creating their own career opportunities. I'd highly recommend checking out the program and visiting USB Ed's website for other world-class business learning opportunities. Until next time, cheers.